So we're back to working on this Cherokee today, and you know you're in big trouble when you have to bust out the cutoff wheel and the air hammer just to take the steering wheel off. Like I said in the previous video, someone had already worked on the Jeep and the steering wheel was loose. Didn't fix the original problem. I guess whenever they did that, they tightened the nut down so tight on this shaft that it was basically welded to the shaft. I tried everything to get the wheel off normally. It was basically impossible. It took me about 2 hours to get it off, and that was even with cutting it off. These Chrysler wheels, I hope that my brother wasn't too attached to the steering wheel. This one's not doing too good anymore. These Chrysler wheels don't have holes like normal steering wheels to use a steering wheel puller. So you have to use a different steering wheel puller or a two-jaw puller. And it actually broke one of my high-quality two-jaw pullers trying to get this wheel off. It was so tight on there. Then I drilled out holes and tapped some 10mm holes in the actual steering wheel to use a regular steering wheel puller, and it actually ripped the threads right out of it when I tried to do that. And then I got a bigger jaw back in there behind here after I put some holes in the clock spring, and it actually just broke the steering wheel. It was on there so tight, it actually broke the steering wheel where I put the jaws at, but it still didn't come off the shaft. So to make a long story short, I ended up cutting the wheel off and taking it down to here. It's going to need a new steering column, obviously, because I had to cut the shaft that holds, cut this shaft. But there was no way around it. I've been working on cars for 30 years. I've never had a steering wheel that tight on the shaft where I couldn't get it off. I mean, it was an incredible amount of torque on the two-jaw puller, and it still wouldn't come loose. It actually broke around the steering wheel instead of taking it off. And we're talking, an incredible amount of torque. So that thing, I don't know what they used to put it on or what they did, but just no way around it. So at this point, we're looking at a steering column. I'll go to the junkyard, pick one up. We'll throw that in, and then we'll get back to the wiring problems. It's going to need a new clock spring, which was the original. I think that was the original problem with the wipers and the horn and the cruise and the airbag light. Was probably this, and I got a feeling it was so tight against this, it probably ripped it. Because you couldn't even get the regular steering wheel puller behind the steering wheel. The steering wheel was so tight against this, there was no room to even put a regular puller behind there. And I ended up just drilling through this a little bit to get room. It was trash anyway. I was trying to save this steering column. I was trying to save the steering wheel. There's just no way around it. So sometimes days, an easy electrical job turns into days like this, where you're pulling the whole interior apart, pulling the steering. We'll put a steering column in it. Maybe I'll film some of that at the junkyard, and put a new clock spring in it, and then we'll see if we can find the parasitic draw and the window problem. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it's possibly in this ignition switch, because the last time I drove it, I turned the key off, had the key out of the car, and the wipers were still working. So it's almost like it's back feeding through the ignition switch on that. But we'll find out. We'll get the steering column swapped out and go from there.